What's up, you guys? Void here, coming back at y'all with another Commander deck tech video. Hope you all enjoyed Rivals of Ixalan pre-release. I did myself and it was fantastic. But more importantly, we get to look at all these awesome cards and just the set, what it can offer us. And usually as a Commander player, I look at the best legendaries, and one has caught my eye over all the others in this set, and that happens to be Kumena, Tyrant of Orazca. 3 mana in Simic colors for a 2/4 legendary creature Merfolk Shaman. He has 3 different activated abilities. You can tap another untapped Merfolk you control, and Kumena, Tyrant of Orazca, can't be blocked this turn. You can tap 3 untapped Merfolk you control to draw a card, and then you can tap 5 untapped Merfolk you control to put a +1/+1 counter on each Merfolk you control. Now, through brewing and through a lot of suggestions, a lot of thinking in general, a lot of people will connect this commander to a Voltron strategy, which isn't a bad thing. As a matter of fact, it might actually be the strongest way to do it, but you shouldn't just straight up ignore the other 2 abilities. Now, obviously, with the first ability, you could throw in some good equipment, even some good auras, and make Kumena just a menacing creature, give him unblockable, and start knocking players out of the game, because it's very cool to have a commander that can make themselves unblockable. However, tapping 3 untapped Merfolk is very similar to a Zombie Lady of Scrolls. Not as good, obviously, but you have an engine where you can just draw cards, which is what we mainly want to center this entire deck around, that second ability to draw cards. And if at all possible, once we get our board state to the max or close to the max, we get a ton of creatures out there, then we want to start focusing on the last ability to put as many +1/+1 counters on our creatures as we can, because we do have a lot of untapped cards in the deck that are going to make it just absolutely ridiculous and so fun to take advantage of. So let's go on to the land base. It's pretty simple. Your basic Simic land fixing for your mana. Only thing I would say is basic utility, something like an Alchemist Refuge. Paying 2 mana and then tapping it, you get to cast non-land cards this turn as though they had flash. I think it's pretty cool, but that's about it. The rest is just your typical mana fixing. Artifacts, again, are going to be for the most part mana. Soul Ring, Thought Vessel, you don't have a maximum hand size, just taps for 1, but pretty good. Simic Signet, good mana fixing in these colors. Gets you both of what you need. Pillar of Origins, this is a Merfolk tribal based deck. If I failed to mention that, I'm sorry, but you're going to be tapping mana for Merfolk the majority of the time anyway, so having a 2 mana rock that's going to be capable of providing us the mana that we need is great. We also play Lightning Greaves because we want to protect Kumena. He's sort of the engine of the deck. If he dies, well, then we have to recast him and then try to go and storm off or do whatever we want to do. I shouldn't say storm because it's not technically storm, but it has that same effect on the game. Once you get to a certain point, you can just keep going off, tapping more Merfolk to continue drawing cards. So if you fail to keep him out there protected, that might be the end of your game. So it's quite important to have that protection there. We do have a cool little win con here. It's not a big win con, but it is Throne of the God Pharaoh. I thought it's worth mentioning that this deck doesn't play cards like Laboratory Maniac, which you might associate with decks that can draw a bunch of cards. This deck can draw cards, but it's a little unreliable to tap 3 Merfolk just to draw 1. So we can't just depend on that combo with Paradox Engine to get us what we need from our deck. So if we can have other synergies that deal with tapping creatures and untapping them, this is going to deal with our tapped creatures, obviously, but this is going to force each opponent to lose life equal to the number of tapped creatures we control. We have some token synergies that should make it pretty easy. Overall, I think it's a pretty good card for just 2 mana. Then we have Gilded Lotus because it is going to tap for 3 mana of whatever color we want, which is pretty important. Like I mentioned, Paradox Engine is going to be pretty ridiculous with mana rocks, and that's usually pretty good. We play Cauldron of Souls, pretty good utility, going to protect our creatures because all we have to do is just tap 5 Merfolk, and all our Merfolk get +1/+1 counters. So as soon as they come back from the Cauldron, they're going to have -1/-1 counters. Putting a +1/+1 counter on a creature pretty much nullifies the -1/-1 counter, and they basically just go back to normal. So that's pretty cool. You get multiple uses out of it for that reason. That's why it's in here. And now we're going to move on to our creature base. It's, for the most part, Merfolk. Go figure. We start off here with Kosi's Trickster. Whenever an opponent shuffles his or her library, you get a +1/+1 counter on it, which is a lot more than you might actually think. A lot of people use fetch lands. A lot of people shuffle effects after they tutor something from their deck, so it shouldn't be too uncommon to get a few +1/+1 counters on Kosi's Trickster. But more importantly, it's a 1 1-mana Merfolk that has some relevance late game. And then Coral Helm Commander. We don't really care too much about the level up, but if we are able to, if we just have some mana we don't need, we can just dump it into Coral Helm Commander, and you get a 3/3 flyer, then we get a 4/4 flyer, and other Merfolk creatures we control get +1/+1. So not the worst Merfolk, but not the best. Mostly in here because it's just a 2-mana Merfolk soldier with some relevance late game. Deeproot Elite, one of the new cards from Rivals of Ixalan, 2-mana, 1/1. Whenever another Merfolk enters the battlefield under your control, you get to put a +1/+1 counter on target Merfolk you control, which is just ridiculous. If you have any token synergies, you can get multiple +1/+1 counters. It's going to help make weaker creatures like Deeproot Elite survive because they're not just 1/1s anymore. So it kind of works almost like the bolster mechanic. If you were to trigger it multiple times when creatures enter the battlefield, pretty cool. We have Grimoire Thief, another cool 2-mana 2/2. Whenever it becomes tapped, you remove the top 3 cards of target opponent's library from the game face down. You may look at cards removed from the game with Grimoire Thief, and then you can pay 1 blue and sacrifice it to turn all cards removed from the game with Grimoire Thief face up, and then you counter all spells with those names. So ideally, it's not going to matter too much in a commander format against the same player, but if you exile something that's going to see play in multiple different decks, like say Sol Ring or Demonic Tutor, or something that's pretty versatile, you have a chance of making that card irrelevant for the rest of the game. So if you look at it that way, it's not completely useless, but for the most part, you want to be able to remove cards from the top of your opponent's library just by tapping it, which we're just going to tap it with Kumena, so pretty cool. Harbinger of the Tides, just going to bounce a creature that's tapped, nothing too special, can flash if you pay 2 more, but again, a cheaper Merfolk, and Merfolk tend to be pretty cheap. Kiyora's Follower is awesome in this deck, and I didn't think it was going to be awesome until I started to play test and I figured out, hey, there are cards like Intruder Alarm, Paradox Engine that are going to untap Kiyora's Follower, and even if our lands are tapped, we get to untap another target permanent. So each time we do that, we can basically save up 1 land and get that land's mana, which is something that's kind of troublesome in a deck like this where you don't have the best mana rocks to take advantage of a Paradox Engine. So it's pretty cool. That's the main use that I really see for Kiyora's Follower. I don't think there are too many good tap abilities aside from that, but definitely worth it in this type of deck. Lord of Atlantis is your typical Merfolk Lord, gives Island Walk, which can also be a win con if we get our creatures pretty big, and it's later in the game. We can just swing in for commander damage at someone else and then just swing all out at the other player. Depending on who's left in the game, it's usually going to come down to that. Then we have Master of the Pearl Trident, basically Lord of Atlantis, going to give you the same exact value. Pretty good cards. Then we have a newer card in Merfolk, Mistbinder, 2-mana, 2/2 Merfolk Lord. Not nearly as good, but it's in here because it's going to give some token value. Giving Anthems is usually pretty good if you have a lot of smaller creatures, so why the heck not? Rootwater Thief, a 2-mana 1/2, can pay 1 blue to give it flying until end of turn, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you get to pay 2 generic. If you do, you search that player's library for a card and remove that card from the game, and then they shuffle their library. So it's a cool way to steal their best card from their deck so that they can't combo off with it, which is just brilliant. Any sort of win cons from anybody's deck is up for grabs, unless they already have it in their hand, which hopefully that's not the case, but a pretty good card. Sea Scryer is really cool, very underrated, can tap to add 1 colorless mana to your mana pool. It's the only blue Merfolk I think we have that does anything like that, and it can also filter 1 as well. So something like an Intruder Alarm, Paradox Engine is going to untap this and technically give you some more mana to work with, which is really cool. Or you could just tap it for the typical Merfolk tap that you get with Kumena, so pretty decent either way. Silvergill Adept, just 2 mana. Most of the time we just want to reveal a Merfolk. We don't want to pay 5 mana for it. 2/1 enters the battlefield, draws a card. Basic consistency is just drawing cards even if it isn't anything special. And it does give us a Merfolk as well to work with, so not terrible. Stony Brook Banneret's going to make our Merfolk and Wizards cost 1 less to play. And a 1/1 with Island Walk. Basic cost reduction is very underrated in Commander. Even if it is just 1 generic mana less, it's good consistency. Then we have Thrasios Triton Hero, 2 mana 1/3. Activated ability is awesome in Commander, good consistency. Scrying 1 and then revealing the top card of your library if it's a land you put on the battlefield tapped. Otherwise, you get to draw that card. Awesome that he happens to be a Merfolk. Pretty cool card. Cold Eye Selkie, 3 mana 1/1 with Island Walk. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you get to draw that many cards. So you want to get as many +1/+1 counters on her as possible, or other pump effects. That way you can draw a bunch of cards just by dealing combat damage, and the Island Walk should help with that. A lot of good decks in the format. are blue and they're going to play some islands every now and then. We do play Drowner of Secrets, a 3 mana 1/3. You get to tap and untap Merfolk you control, and target player puts the top card of his or her library into his or her graveyard. So again, this is going to be one of our other win cons later in the game if we can just keep going and untapping a ton of our Merfolk to the point where our board is comprised of just a ton of Merfolk and we really have nothing else to do. We don't have any Laboratory Maniacs, so something like this, if we can just play it and keep untapping those permanents, we can just then tap the Merfolk and then mill our opponents out. Hopefully that's the case, and we have enough spells to keep a Paradox Engine or an Intruder Alarm going. But if you have both of those out, then you could just stack the triggers and pretty much win regardless. So that's a pretty cool card. Then we have Jaylight Ranger, 3 mana green, 2/1 Merfolk Scout. When it enters the battlefield, it explores and then it explores again. Nothing too special, just good consistency. Hopefully, if there's 2 lands on the top of your deck, you don't have to draw into them. It's the worst thing ever in a combo deck if you just draw into dead lands. It's terrible. So it's either going to get you a card that you want off the top of your deck, or it's going to get rid of the lands off the top of your deck. Either way, that's pretty good. Name of Kapala, Warden of Waves, 3 mana 2/2. Gonna protect your stuff. Spells your opponents cast that target a Merfolk you control cost 2 more, and abilities your opponents activate the target Merfolk you control cost 2 more to activate, which is going to be an absolute pain earlier in the game. If you get them out early, that's ideal. It's not guaranteed protection, but it's going to at least slow your opponents down and tax them if they want to do something to you. Then we play Lull Mage Mentor. Again, one of those cards where at a certain point in the game, once you just get out all your Merfolk and you have your untap triggers, it's pretty much going to be unstoppable. You can just tap your 7 Merfolk. Okay, I counter your best spell that you can cast in a turn. Next opponent's upkeep, I then untap, because there are a lot of cards that do that in the deck. And then I can just tap my Merfolk again to counter a spell. It's ridiculous. All the while countering these spells, you then get a 1/1 Merfolk. So you can just keep getting more Merfolk that way. Eventually, you're going to have enough to counter multiple spells in a turn. And you're going to have enough to counter a spell and then draw cards and do that all at the same time and pretty much lock the game down. Unless they have split-second removal, I really have no way of seeing how they can get out of that. Pretty good card. Merfolk Sovereign, 3 mana Lord. Again, Lords are pretty good even if they don't do anything else special. This one does, however, make a target Merfolk creature unblockable this turn, which can be pretty important. If you don't have Kumena on board, but you have another good Merfolk that can attack and deal lethal, you want to make that Merfolk unblockable, so that's pretty good. Mira Regerie, another good Lord. Whenever you play a Merfolk spell, you get to tap or untap target permanent, which is, again, pretty good. Untap triggers allow you to make use of tapping more Merfolk. That's never a bad thing. Sage of Fables. Each other wizard creature you control comes into play with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. A lot of Merfolk happen to be good wizards too, so that's something. However, we also have the ability to then pay 2 generic and remove a +1/+1 counter from a creature to draw a card. So the ability to get a ton of them out and then just put +1/+1 counters on each means that at the very least we're going to have for the entirety of the game, or however long Sage of Fables is out there on the field, we can just pay 2 generic and draw a card. So in addition to whatever Kumena is able to give us in card draw, we have even more of it. So that's really good. Swift Warden, 3 mana, another new card from Rivals, has Flash, a 3/3 that can give a Merfolk we control hexproof until end of turn when it enters the battlefield. It's a little bit like Merfolk protection for Kumena because that's the main reason why we want her in the deck. So that's pretty cool. Then we have Thada Adel, Acquisitor, one of the better cards I would say in the deck. Taking your opponent's best artifacts is always awesome. If they have Gilded Lotus or if they have a Paradox Engine, you can then take it and then just abuse it to your benefit. Island Walk is usually going to get into a lot of those artifact decks anyway because most of them play blue and have islands, so that's pretty cool. Voral of the Hulklade, not my favorite card in the deck, but late game if we have a ton of +1/+1 counters on Kumena, could definitely be useful. If not, a 3 mana Merfolk, you're not really going to lose much. A lot of these Merfolk are pretty cheap and easy to get out anyway. We have Wake Thrasher. Whenever permanent we control becomes untapped, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Funny thing, because we have a lot of those Merfolk can't be blocked until end of turn effects. Island Walk to all your Merfolk, those things are cool. We're going to have a lot of permanents on tapping, so eventually something like this is going to be a huge threat, if not outright lethal to a lot of players. Really cool Merfolk. Then we have Fallow Sage, 4 mana 2/2. When it becomes tapped, you may draw a card. So you tap it to draw a card with Kumena, you get to draw another card. So that's really cool. I love that synergy with tapping creatures. You get something when they happen to be tapped. It's sort of like inspired when they untap. If you can just find a way to tap them first, you can get a usefulness out of them. That's pretty cool. Forerunner of the Heralds is the Merfolk tutor from Rivals. Really cool. Can tutor up a Merfolk card and put it on the top of our library. And then when another Merfolk enters the battlefield, we get to put a +1/+1 counter on Forerunner of the Heralds. So it's just Merfolk in general, so it can be token Merfolk. That's pretty cool. We have Herald of Secret Streams. Creatures we control with +1/+1 counters on them can't be blocked, which is hilarious because our commander can put +1/+1 counters on all of our Merfolk. So again, kind of one of those win cons where we don't want to deck ourselves out, but rather we want to get a developed board state to where we can then take advantage of a card like this. Then we have Seafloor Oracle, another 4-mana Merfolk. 2/3, whenever a Merfolk you control deals combat damage to a player, you get to draw a card. So another Coastal Piracy effect in blue is pretty good. Drawing cards off of dealing combat damage is never a bad thing, but it's not usually going to be our ideal way of drawing cards. It's just there if we need it. Sea Hunter is one of those older cards, the older Merfolk tutor that can pay 3, tap it to search your library for a Merfolk card. You put it into your hand instead of just on the top, which is pretty good. You can do this multiple different times. It's an activated ability, so you should be able to abuse this and get the best Merfolk possible to your hand. Pretty good. Surge Spanner, whenever it becomes tapped, you get to pay 2 mana. If you do, return target permanent to its owner's hand. Again, tapping it shouldn't be too difficult. Paying 2 mana might be a little iffy, but if you're able to do that, then you can just easily deal with the best target permanent on the field. Tempest Caller is awesome. Enters the battlefield, tap all creatures target player controls. So if Island Walk isn't enough, tap down all their blockers, make it easier to hit them. Empress Galena is an awesome Merfolk where we just pay 2 mana, tap her, and gain control of target legend or legendary permanent. Obviously, they changed it. It's just legendary permanent now. And this, of course, includes Planeswalkers because Planeswalkers are considered legendary. So really cool utility. A lot of good commanders are also legendary. In fact, they're all legendary. I don't know why I said that. So yeah, taking control of their commanders, taking control of the best commanders at the table is going to help you win the game. Pretty cool. Merc Fiend Liege, a non-Merfolk but actually incredibly useful, untaps our creatures during each other player's untap step, and other green creatures and other blue creatures get +1/+1. So an insane anthem and insane for this deck where we can just untap our Merfolk during our opponent's untap steps and then just get more usefulness out of them that way. Incredible card. And we have more cards like these, believe it. Such as Seedborn Muse. We have 5 mana for 2/4, untaps all permanents you control during each other player's untap step. So if you thought Mercfiend Liege was going to be crazy with this deck, this card's even more crazy. You get it out there, you can untap your mana rocks, you can untap your lands, and just go crazy. Brilliant card. And this is the benefit to playing green as opposed to just mono blue, is that you do have a lot of these good untap cards like Seedborn Muse that make it a lot easier to take advantage of it. We have Deep Channel Mentor. 6 mana 2/2, blue creatures you control are unblockable. Yet another win con. If we get our board state up pretty big, a lot of +1/+1 counters on our creatures, we should be able to win the game with a card like this. Prime Speaker Zagana is amazing card draw. Shouldn't have to explain it too much. The only difficult thing might be getting a big creature out there to draw a ton of cards, but shouldn't be too hard. If not, we also play Tishana, Voice of Thunder, because that's going to get us card draw equal to the number of creatures we control. We do play a lot of tokens, so that should be pretty easy to get. You also have no maximum hand size, which is a pretty big upside as well. Then we do have some awesome enchantments. We have Cryptolith Rite, gonna make all of our creatures effectively Birds of Paradise, which is awesome with our untap cards. Getting more mana on our turn allows us to combo off. Pretty good card. Curse of Bounty is another good one. If we want to just put this on the player we can easily attack, that's going to help us win the game. And it just untaps all non-land permanents we control. Yeah, your opponents also get it, but hopefully when we put it out there, we're the main beneficiary of it. So Curse of Bounty is pretty good in this deck. Marrow Commerce is awesome. One of the best cards in the entire deck. 2 mana, it is a tribal enchantment Merfolk, so you can tap it because it's also considered a Merfolk. At the end of your turn, you untap all Merfolk you control. So you get more uses out of your Merfolk if you can tap them all during your turn, and then at the end, they all untap. So then you can wait for your opponents to either remove it all, to then tap it again, or wait for their end step right before your next turn to then tap them and then get more card draw or more +1/+1 counters that way. Either way, fantastic card. Auto include in this deck. I love it. Quest for Renewal is another good untap card, 2 mana enchantment. Whenever a creature you control becomes tapped, you get a quest counter on it, and as long as there are 4 more quest counters on it, you untap all creatures you control during each other player's untap step. So tapping down 4 creatures is a piece of cake in this deck. Shouldn't cause you any problems. Just a 2-mana enchantment that's going to sit on the field and make it easier for you to then get more taps for your Merfolk. So that's pretty cool. And just to let you know, the untap step is static. It doesn't stack. So if you have like a quest for renewal and you have a Seedborn Muse, they don't stack, you don't get to then tap. So just thought I would clear that up for you who might be wondering. It's not that busted, but it's pretty good either way. We have Deeproot Waters, which isn't an untap thing, but it's really good. If we can get multiple Merfolk spells, we cast them, we get tokens as well. And with cards like Intruder Alarm, where we get to untap creatures as they enter the battlefield, we get the token Merfolk first because we get it when we cast a Merfolk, and then when that Merfolk enters the battlefield, we get untap triggers again. So it's a pretty cool interaction there. We play Growing Rites of Itlamok because more mana is never a bad thing. It basically flips into a Guy's Cradle, and it's not difficult in this deck where we have a ton of creatures. Intruder Alarm, finally get to the card I've been talking about. Creatures don't untap during their controller's untap steps, which is kind of funny because a lot of our cards can untap during our opponent's untap steps, so technically they're not our untap steps. And whenever a creature comes into play, untap all creatures, so that's the reason why. We can basically just go off with this card. If we have Deeproot Waters, stuff like that, we should be able to just keep going, keep drawing cards, or keep getting +1/+1 counters, and it's all possible with a card like this. Really fantastic, and it's awesome that it's in blue. It sees a lot of play in those wizard decks with the Zami that are capable of tapping and untapping as well. Brilliant card. Again, kind of like Marrow Commerce, where it's like one of the best cards in the deck for a very similar reason. Then we have Aquatic Incursion. It just gets us 2 little 1/1 blue Merfolk creature tokens with hexproof, so it's not super fantastic, but it does get us an activated ability that can make a Merfolk unblockable until end of turn, so I guess it's something, but one of the weaker enchantments in the deck if I had to say so. Then we do play Kindred Discovery. This card is awesome. Once you have the engine going, it's just going to sit there. Each time you cast a Merfolk, you're going to draw a card. Each time your Merfolk attack, you get to draw a card. Just a brilliant way to keep the engine going, and card draw is never a bad thing. Even in a deck where you can get it as easily as tapping down 3 Merfolk, still amazing. Then to wrap it up, we do have some sorceries and instants. We only play a few of each. As far as our sorceries go, we have Aquatex Will, 1 mana, tribal sorcery Merfolk. We get to put a flood counter on target land. That land is an island in addition to its other land types, as long as it has a flood counter on it. If you control a Merfolk, you get to draw a card, so you get a little bit of card draw. You get to then swing in with some island walk creatures. Pretty good card. Then we do play some good cantrips and Ponder and Preordain. This is a blue deck. We want to get to our pieces quicker. And we do have a Rite of Replication, because if worse comes to worse and we don't have a lot of Merfolk, just pay the kicker cost and then get a ton of them out there and see how it goes from there. And 5 copies of a Merfolk is going to allow you to then get some more +1/+1 counters. Pretty good. And as far as our instants go, we have a Brainstorm, because again, a good cantrip, and we want some ways to get to our pieces quicker, and card draw is never a bad way of getting to that. Cyclonic Rift, one of the best cards in the whole format, gonna bounce all their stuff back to their hand. Good card. And Frantic Search, one of the better cantrips in the format, I would say. It sees a lot of play in storm builds for a very similar reason. You want to go off on the same turn, and this frees up your mana to do that, so pretty good. So anyway guys, hope you enjoyed this deck. It is, for all intents and purposes, a prototype of what I would want to see out of this for the future. There's obviously some cards you could throw in there. You could throw in Fabricate, which is a 3 mana artifact tutor to get a Paradox Engine. You could throw in a ton of other cards. This is very raw, and it's something I definitely intend to improve on. As the year goes on, we get some more support, maybe. We never know. Commander might offer us a Merfolk tribal deck there for 2018, so we never know for sure. But definitely, as I play with this deck in paper, I'm going to get a better idea of what feels right. So anyway, let me know what you think about the deck. Check out the full deck list. It will be in the description box below. You guys have a wonderful day. Void here, signing off.